Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show, which stands for Financial Information for Today and Tomorrow. I'm Bobby P. Kinzer.
And I'm Thomas Doty.
And yes, we are the FITT Show, helping our people get their finances in shape. How are you doing today, Doty?
Man, I am happy to be alive.
You're looking absolutely marvelous. And remember, it's not how you feel, it's how you look, and you look marvelous. So, y'all, we want to kick this show off today because we are in Black History Month. And what better time to discuss during Black History Month and dealing with the racial gap in America between whites and black is to talk about tips for financial wellness in 2023. Yes, that's what this show is about today. So make sure you call Lottie, Dottie, and everybody, get them to tune in to our show today because we got a lot of information we want to talk about. But first, I just want to remind you, can you please click on the like button and the heart button. That gives us more access to more people. And also put in the comment box any comments or suggestions about topics you'd like for us to talk about. That also helps us exponentially with the algorithms to reach more people because we're trying to reach as many people with this information as possible because we know that knowledge is power. So, Dope, let's start like we always start at the top of the show. Let's talk about the stock market and how it's doing today.
Well, it's the same old story. It was a choppy week. There were some ups, there were some downs. There's a lot of positive information out there because earnings have been coming in really good, and the employment situation is way more positive. You read about a bunch of layoffs at a lot of the tech companies, but there still seems to be a labor shortage. So, I mean, and that's a positive. But for the week, the Dow closed down about 350 points or 1%. NASDAQ closed down 400 points for the week or about 3.4%. Now, some of the stocks I follow and own, Microsoft only lost a point this week. It's been getting a lot of positive feedback on its AI system, and so there's a lot of it's really gone last month or so. It's gone up. It was down in the 230s, so it's up over 10% in the last month. Tesla's been on a roll too. We talked about that last week. It's up 19 points this week, and again, it's due to their all the cars they're putting out right now. The fact that they're acting more like a normal car company, and just their prospects for the future are starting to look even better. Apple stayed flat, and Pfizer's still down a buck for the week. And we've talked about that for a while. But remember, Pfizer's paying 3.7% dividend, which is always positive. So even though the stock isn't moving, 3.7 is still a pretty decent dividend, and it's about the same as you'd get in most good money market funds right now. So it's not a bad place, to be. So the markets, it's going to be choppy for a while. There's still some concern about what the Fed's going to do and how long they're going to continue to raise interest rates, and that's kind of got the tech stocks a little worried. So it's continue to be hold tight, do not panic. This too shall pass, and just remember, after most recessions, or even during most recessions, the stock market typically does okay. There's some pullback, but it usually hangs in pretty well. And we talked about after I think it was 2008, I think 2009, the market was up, S&P was up 25 points, and the following year was up 15 points. So just hang tight. Don't try to buy and sell. We keep telling you that. It's too hard to decide when to get out and when to get back in. So that's going to continue to be our message. Hang tight, invest for the long haul, and just continue to keep your eye on things and don't panic. How's crypto doing?
Crypto. Before we go to crypto, I just want to make a quick statement, though. I went to the car show in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed of the number of electric cars that are out there. and
Oh yeah.
Tesla, and how Tesla marked down the cost of their cars by about 20%. So there's going to be a little electric car competition out there in the coming years, and it's going to be interesting to see who's going to end up at the top. Because
Well,
currently, General Motors stock has been up, and they had mentioned last summer that they're going to be going full electric cars by 2035, and they also opened up an electric car plant, building, excuse me, electric car plant, and they bought a what they call lithium mine from a particular company which will generate, create their own batteries. So that's interesting in the electric car space and stocks.
and just to jump on that, Bob, Tesla got such a head start on everybody.
Right.
And it's kind of funny because some of their price cuts were up to like $20,000 on some cars, but they can afford to do that because they're making a lot of money on cars. Most other car manufacturers are selling their cars at a loss, mainly because their volumes are so low. And so they're having to cut prices too because Tesla has, but most other car companies can't afford it. And just a side note, Tesla is now the top selling car in California, which is indicative of the head start they have in this whole electric car market.
Interesting you say that because China was protesting heavily about how Tesla had, dropped the cost of the recent order of cars, but the other people had already made orders that they didn't get that discount. So it's going to be interesting what's going to happen in that space with electric cars.
They had people in stores protesting, and they had folks who had just imagine you had just bought a car, then you found out a couple of weeks later and it's $20,000 cheaper. I'd be upset too.
I'd be pissed, you know what I'm saying?
But
Yeah, so that's what's going on in that space. And Joe, we're going to talk a little bit about gold. Gold is down. It's interesting, that usually when economy down, gold usually do well, but it's been going down. So next week, we're going to be talking about commodities and specifically about gold. So we'll get into that space a little bit more better. But let's talk about the cryptocurrency market, which a lot of people are in, though. And what's so interesting, though? Statistics show that majority of people are as far as race go, a lot of black people are into the cryptocurrency space. And, I don't know what that
that's scary.
tells us, but it's kind of interesting. But let's talk about it, man. Cryptocurrency, as far as the market goes, the market cap is down 26 billion. And remember, I talked to you the last 3 weeks has been going up. Anywhere from like about, I think it was maybe 9% a week, but all of a sudden it's starting to go back down. I don't know if the dollar has been getting stronger, by the way, and I'm sure that affects cryptocurrency because the whole purpose of cryptocurrency was to go against the dollar anyway. So that doesn't seem to be too unusual. The Bitcoin, which is still the number one Bitcoin out of 9,000 active Bitcoins. Now, some people say, wait, isn't there more Bitcoins than that? Yes, it's over 21,000 cryptocurrencies, but only 9,000 of them are active. But the Bitcoin, the one that was going up the last 3 weeks consecutively, has dropped over $1,212 today. So to close today, crypto, one Bitcoin was 21,808. And remember, around about, what was it though? In 2010, I think it was, cryptocurrency was around about $150. So that shows you the people who got in early and doing very well. Ethereum, which is smart contracts cryptocurrency, what they have a contract, so it's supposed to give you a little bit better structure. It's still highly speculative. It's down by about 3%. Tether, which is the stable coins, right, which is backed by a dollar or an asset, because other cryptocurrencies are not backed by anything. Okay, but stable coins are usually backed by a dollar, and Tether is still at the number 3 position out of all cryptocurrencies. Dogecoin has been holding, and Shiba Inu has been holding at 9 and 15. Dogecoin had placed number 9 at 8 cents. And remember, one time it was all the way up to $1 until Elon Musk made that snafu on Saturday Night Live, making the joke about cryptocurrency, and it caused it to be down. It hasn't been back up since. So that's the market on cryptocurrency, Dope. Dope, there was an article I want you to talk about from Master P, and some of y'all
Yeah,
may not know Master P. Master P is one of the first rappers that was into becoming an independent um, artist, and he built an empire. Matter of fact, close to $1 billion. But talk about the article he had, though.
yeah, and the reason it caught my eye is because it not that I read a lot of articles from rappers, but he was talking about money, and he said some things that kind of struck me as just smart. And his, I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit of what he said. He talks about a lot of people don't realize that there's three type of people in this world: it's poor people, rich people, wealthy people. Poor people, all they talk about is money. Where my money at? I need my money. I gotta get my money. The rich people, all they talk about are things. So they talk about the new car they bought, the house they have, the jewelry they've got. Where the wealthy people talk about ideas. And that's what it's about. And to that, I'll add, wealthy people also talk about the money they have and how they can use that money to make more money. Not so much to buy things, but to use it to make more money. And one of Warren Buffett's quote is, until you're making money while you sleep or making passive income, you'll never be wealthy. And it just struck me that makes, the things he's talking about make so much sense. And I know a lot of us didn't grow up thinking that way, but it's crucial to start looking at money in that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling anybody that money should drive you and that should be all you're about. It's not what I'm saying. I'm talking strictly from an investment standpoint, is that we need to look at money differently than we have in the past, because as I've said before, most people weren't taught to look at money as a means to making more money. And in my house, whenever we got some extra money, it was to buy something that we wanted. But now I do look in terms of money as how to make more money. And that's what Bob and I are trying to get the folks who listen to us to understand, to appreciate a bank account as much as you appreciate a new purse or a new pair of shoes or a shiny new car. And it just makes so much sense for us to change the way we think about money. And again, I'm not saying money should drive all your habits and all your thoughts, but there's just so many easy ways to make more money by just doing what you normally do, only being a little more discriminate in how you do those things. From, we've talked about using reward cards, we talked about maximizing your benefits, and we've talked about investing. And there's no easy way to get there unless you have a great idea that everybody wants and nobody else has. And if you don't, you can do it through investing if you are consistent and constant and put your money away and make good choices. And that's what we've talked about in our show. And the fact that, Bob and I always talk about the fact we didn't know, we learned the hard way. Not knowing is not an excuse anymore, because there's too many vehicles out there with information for you to learn from. It's just people won't take the time and put the effort into learning about money and what they should do and what their plans are, what their goals are, and those types of things. So I probably won't ever be quoting from a rapper again, but I think what Master P said made a whole lot of sense.
But though, like we always say, and what Master P was talking about, that, financial management is a mindset. I had a friend who told me his wife wanted a coach bag. And you know what he did? He bought an assistant coach. I ain't lying. But look, though, another statement they talk about is rich people don't spend and save after they spend. they save and spend after what they save. And it's so important because I try to get that across to my daughters, my 2 daughters and my son, because they're in well, just like we were. It's such a market out there where everybody's trying to get that extra dollar out your pocket, and everything looks good. It's so much stuff. It's just a bunch of stuff out there for you to spend money. But once you understand and get control of the mindset that Master P was talking about, it really puts you in a position which you will be able to take more control over your finances. Like you said, though, I didn't come up with any powerful people sharing financial information. Matter of fact, and back in the day, in the 70s and the 60s, the biggest financial product that people were talking about was life insurance. And that was whole life insurance with guaranteed like 4%. That was the most. And that was considered, financial management, just getting a life insurance policy so you can pay somebody's funeral expenses. But we've come a long way. And like you said, though, there are a lot of rappers out there that are making a lot of money, though, and are doing very well. Because I hear a lot of older people get down on these rappers, but a lot of these rappers are making money and doing good things, and I love to hear that.
But you say a lot. I think there's some.
Let me put this. No, I shouldn't say a lot. More than what people think. Let me say that.
Yeah,
More than what people think. But that's the thing, though. I mean, but that's the point, and I'm gonna get off of this. That a lot of older people my point is, be getting down on a lot of rappers, but some rappers, and many more than many, are doing very well and doing good things with money. And I'm tired of hearing older people just talk about the negative people, just like with slavery. They talk about the 2 million slaves that were enslaved, but they never talk about the 500,000 slaves that fled to the north and were free and did accumulate businesses and assets. They never talk about that. They talk about the 2 million, but never about the 500,000. But I mean, it may sound that I'm going off, but this is Black History Month, so I just want to remind you. So don't. I ain't lying. I'm telling you, I'm fired up today like a man smoking a cigarette at the gas station. I'm about to blow up. Yeah, you talking about was down. I'm fired up now, dude. I'm ready. Let's go. Dope. Let's get into this topic today about tips for financial wellness in 2023.
Yeah, and Bob, the little small financial steps you take today can add up to help you create a better tomorrow. And that's what we're about. And as you think about Black History Month, lifting up the Black community also means empowering our financial future. And one surefire way to do that is to building up your own personal financial wellness as a person of color.
That's I mean, there's no doubt about that, though. And it's so important that you have empathy for yourself. It's like you need, understand and look at yourself as your best friend. Because after everybody retreats, all you got is you. So it's important that you focus on you and build those things.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, but so building financial stability and wealth can be challenging, especially for many Black Americans, since the inequalities that we face when it comes to equity. We talk about assets. And most people do not know how to accurately assess probabilities or even evaluate risk in their financial planning. And as a result, their financial plan is likely to fall apart the moment something goes wrong, which means it almost always falls apart because there are millions of things that can happen in life we can't predict and didn't account for or simply forgot to consider. So we want to talk about tonight just a few financial wellness tips that you can take control of your personal finances to help you take control of your money and to work towards building wealth.
Yeah, and add what you just said about your financial plan could fail. A bigger problem is people who don't even have a financial plan. So that's a bigger issue too. So the first step to do is have empathy for yourself, which means appreciate the fact that you may not have known and you are learning as you go. And there are a lot of things outside of your control that you can't really affect. And so if you get a little behind, what it means is don't just throw your hands up and say, oh, this will never work. Because we're not saying accept the status quo or be happy with things are, or stop fighting for social and economic justice. Just remember the wider perspective when it comes to your own pocket, and can help you identify what you can control, and go identify your own personal priorities and start making more intentional choices with your money wherever you are today. So wherever you're starting from, you can build from there, and don't worry about the fact that you aren't starting with as much as the other guy starting with, or what so-and-so has. You got to look at your own situation, start from there. And if you look at the racial wealth gap, it's staggering. This goes back for years, and it has grown from 1870 to now, and it's grew 0.1% between 1980 and 2020. So white Americans, who are 60% of the US population, hold 84% of the country's total wealth, which is crazy. While Black Americans, who are 13% of the US population, only hold 4%. Now, white workers are paid more than Blacks and Hispanic workers at nearly every education level. Okay, white college graduates earn about $36 an hour, where Black college graduates earn only around $28 an hour. And so that's kind of hard to overcome. But Black women, it's even worse, because a Black woman earns just 79 cents for every $1 for a white man. And that's things we got to continue to work on. Another one of those things you can't do anything about, but start from where you are and start making good choices. And so given that realm, be your own best friend. Stuff happens. There's always steps we can take to help get a better grasp of our financial affairs. Start doing that. It can be tricky to find balance. We often talk about that, trying to get balance between saving and spending, but just look at your priorities and put your financial health at a higher level than it is today. And that means putting more time into it, being more attentive to it, and looking for things that helps build your wealth, help get your ducks in a row so you can put yourself in a position to have greater financial health in this year and going forward.
Just want to remind everyone that you can click on the like button. That helps us get traction with the viewers, and put comments in the comment box. Though the next tip to financial wellness may sound very common, and people say, yeah, I know this, but it is one that really struggles in the Black community, and that is enlist allies in community. A lot of times, just in general, some Black folks don't like to share their information, especially when it comes to their finances. But an important first step in achieving greater financial health is building a financial support system. Your first and best ally is always yourself. So invest in your financial skill set. And this could mean anything from, taking a business course at a local college, or doing your own research on financial topics like retirement, investing, or joining educational webinars. There are so many out there. The Society for Financial Education and Professional Development, that's SFEPD, has financial webinars. I'm the president of LIFE, the Literacy Institute of Financial Enrichment. You can go out on financialenrichment.org, and we do a lot of financial webinars virtually. Then there's things that you can go through your workplace, and there's benefits of information there. And then you can build your own financial knowledge bank. Reach out for support from others. Access the workplace benefits like financial wellness programs. A lot of companies have financial wellness programs, and they can actually, provide opportunities for you to accumulate even greater financial security. Now, if your employees offers a retirement plan, enroll and maximize any company match. I mean, you cannot even afford to leave that money on the table because that's 100%. If they give you 5% matching 5%, that's 100% of 5% that you can be getting. If they offer you financial wellness programs, tap into any features you can use in your day-to-day life, like budgeting tools, saving support, access to professional advice. Now, also finding a financial mentor whom you can talk to about your financial goals and ideas and actions can take to turn these dreams that you have of being financial, secure, and independent into a reality. And this looks like working with an experienced, there's nothing like working with an experienced financial coach or advisor who can offer you personal guidance or forge new relationships in your community. So, please reach out and build a community of a knowledge bank of people that you can go to. Now, not just anybody. We all me and Dodie always talk about that. You just can't talk to anybody, but we talk about knowledgeable people that you can learn from their experiences.
Yeah, and this is one we beat to death, but it's that important, and that's building your credit. And it's a shame, but Black consumers are much more likely to be turned down for credit than compared to white consumers. That's a fact. And so do everything you can to get a stronger credit score, just because of the money that you can save by having a stronger credit score in the way of having lower interest rates, which definitely adds up over time. And we've talked about ways to improve your credit scores, but first and foremost is don't borrow more money than you can afford to pay back, right? And so one of me and Bob's jokes that people talk about the difference between what I can afford really means. And to some people it means I can afford to make the payment on it. And to some people it means I can afford to write a check for it. And obviously we believe in the second one. Just because you can afford to make a payment does not mean you can afford it. And you really shouldn't buy it if it's not something that you absolutely need to have. And so we always talked about building up your credit scores by making small purchases and then immediately paying them off. That can help raise your credit scores. And always look to borrow at the lowest interest rate you can, and make sure you understand the terms of your credit situation. When rates increase, what's your payment? What's the fees if you're late? And the other thing I would tie to that is watching out for scams and making sure you protect your credit by making sure you don't get scammed. As a side note, in this community I live in, there's about 700 homes. And I had asked the folks to have someone come in and talk about scams. So they had a police officer from the little town here to come in and talk about scams and frauds. And he made the point of telling us that just in our community, there was $1.5 million in fraud lost out of just 700 homes. Now, that's a huge number, but that's what was reported. And I would argue that there is probably a lot more, maybe not a lot, but there is some more that just doesn't get reported because some people are too embarrassed to know that they've been taking advantage, to tell somebody they've been taken advantage of. And some people obviously don't know that they've been scammed. So work on building your credit, work on watching out that you don't get scammed.
And strengthen your credit, because building your credit is one thing, but making sure it's, you got a good credit score is so important. Dude, I want to go to some of the comments. We had some great comments tonight. Insurance Streety, and Dope, that's our Penn State alumnus, Sharon. North Halls, go North Halls. What's up, Sharon? Sharon says, should one try financial planning on their own or hire a financial planner?
Well, it depends on what you know. If you feel you know enough to do it on your own, and that's the thing, even if you hire a financial planner, you need to have a basic understanding so you can make sure you can relay to him what your goals are, what your risk level is, what you're comfortable with investing. You don't want to just give someone your money and say, okay, you take care of it. So you need to have a minimum level of understanding in order to have a decent conversation, even with a financial professional. And if you feel you know enough to do it on your own, and you're going to continue to stay up on top of it, then there's obviously nothing wrong with that. And Bob and I always talk about keeping it simple when it comes to investing, because a lot of people are just looking, they consider investing, give me a hot stock pick, and I'm going to pick that stock and make a whole lot of money, and that's my investing. That doesn't usually work. It probably very seldom works. We are of the school of get a mutual fund that covers a broad range, like an S&P index fund. Invest in that constantly and consistently. And you don't need a financial advisor to do that, because we'd always say you should get a low-cost mutual fund to do that, and you don't need a financial advisor to do that. But as we've talked about in the past, where a financial advisor becomes important is when you start looking ahead for things that you have not encountered, and you probably have not had a conversation with someone about how to handle a particular situation. In my own case, I consider myself pretty financially astute, but things in retirement I had never thought about or planned for. So there were a couple of things I could have done better had I been looking 5-10 years ahead as far as my financial situation concerned. And again, that's never something I thought about doing. Maybe I should have. Shame on me for not having done it. But that's what I recommend to everybody. You just can't look at today. You got to look at how decisions you make today are going to affect you down the road. The best example I can give is if you save a lot of money tax deferred, you're going to have to deal with getting that money out and at the same time minimizing your taxes. And there are so many things you should know about getting ready for retirement and when to take Social Security, and decisions that you're going to have to make later on are predicated on decisions you make today. So if you're going to do it on your own, you have to take those things into account. But a financial advisor can provide some things that you may not be aware of. Tax situations, wills, trusts, those kinds of things. You need somebody to kind of be looking at the whole picture, in my opinion. How you feel, Bobby?
No, that's good enough. You answer that directly. And look, though, this must be a Penn State reunion. What's up now? Now says, what's up now, Dodie? We can also support Black businesses. No question about it. That can help all boats rise. And Modestine Johnson said, when I started at the FDIC in 1979, there was no one to talk to or with about investing in the 401k plan. But over the years, I learned and helped others. That is awesome. And then Rodney Madison, thenoteexperience.com. Go out there and check them out. How do you balance the cost of having a financial advisor to having them minimize taxes and inflation? Let me read that again and see what Rodney's at. How do you balance the cost of having a financial advisor to having them minimize taxes and inflation?
And I think what he's saying, Bob, and he can correct me if I'm not, I think he's saying, does the cost of a financial advisor cover with what he brings you as far as minimizing inflation and tax advice? Does he cover what he may be charging you? Okay.
Right.
Now, when we talk, let's be clear, because we talked about this before. If you look at what you pay for a professional to pick for you and people who pick mutual funds on their own, there's no definitive result that says you do better using a financial advisor. And that's why Bobby and I are of the school of pick a mutual fund. But where a financial advisor can be helpful is when you start talking about your entire wealth portfolio. And that's something that we aren't used to dealing with, because all the things we talk about, from taxes to insurance to planning for death to planning for inheritance. Those are all particular areas that require a lot of knowledge in and of themselves that most of us don't have individually. And so ideally, that's where a financial advisor can help you kind of put everything together. Now, in some cases, you might have to have X amount of money to have a financial advisor. For example, I have Fidelity, and I have an advisor in Fidelity, and I have a wealth team that works with me, and that's because of the amount of money I have in Fidelity. So I get a lot of those benefits, and they charge me the more you have invested, the less you pay. So yeah, I do pay a cost for it. I personally feel it's worth what I pay to get the information that I get, because I have access to a lot of information and a lot of people in their organization. They don't give tax advice, okay, and they are not lawyers, but they give general recommendations about, not recommendations, general information about those things, which allows me to make informed decisions about those topics that otherwise I'd probably have to pay to get. So in my view, it's worth it, because that's the one big problem that we have. There's so much that we don't know about wealth because we've never had wealth. And with Puff Daddy's song, More Money, More Problems, it's not more money, more problems. It's more money, more things you have to look at, because a lot of things affect you having money. So I hope I kind of went roundabout answering your question, but I do think it's worth it, because there's a lot of mistakes you can make if you don't have the requisite information.
Well, and you did answer this question, because Rodney said, yes, that's what he was talking about. And the thing, though, is, once again, surveys show that Black Americans struggle with financial advisors because they don't trust them a lot of times. And that causes people to go on their own. But it is, once again, it's a personal decision. Me and Thomas Doty believe if you need one, get one. If you don't need one, just make sure that you empower yourself with the information you need to make the right financial decisions. Dope, financial wellness tip. This one is build your savings and investments. Now, I know we talk about savings a lot, and saving can often be the first thing we let go of when money is tight. Everybody knows about saving. We talk about it all the time, but some people don't do it. Some people don't even have an emergency fund. And this is one of the things that it's talking about. Now, if we had any savings at all, right, according to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, the EBRI, which does a lot of research, a typical working family doesn't even have 1 month's worth of income saved outside of their retirement account. Now, while it may feel counterintuitive, do everything you can to avoid dipping into your savings to cover bills or expenses. And you do your best to continue to add to your savings, even if it means cutting down on holiday spending. Start as small as you need to figure out what works for your lifestyle. Perhaps just putting as little as $5 a month. You'd be surprised how it adds up. But you got to start somewhere. And the more that you save systematically, the more you'll be able to gain traction. Now, savings and investments are just as essential as credit. Now, if it feels like a challenge to find funds to invest and save, consider this one particular type of budget help, which they call a 50-30-20. They say put away 50% of your money toward necessities like food and housing, 30% towards wants, and then you have 20% left to save and invest. Now, this is just one tool that it recommends that you could possibly use. There's many different methods and strategies, but that's just one. And make it a priority, though, to build an emergency fund if you don't already have one. Set your sights on having enough set aside to cover at least 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. Some people say 6 12 months. It's whatever works for you. There's no one set fixed sum or idea, but it's what works for you. But the key is to make sure you set up a emergency fund. Now, this is the catch. You can't savings account interest rate yourself to financial security, meaning it is hard to build wealth if you just put money in a savings account that's paying maybe now 3%, but until recently it was paying less than 1%. But even at 3%, it's going to be very hard to create generational wealth, just put money in a savings account. Why? Because of long-term inflation and wealth building. But just be conscious, you got to have a balanced portfolio, and savings is a big part because that's the place that we usually cut corners on.
Okay, in the next one, we're talking about, we got this information from another Kiplinger article, which we always find to have real good information. And they call it avoid a false sense of security. And I'd like to change it to don't BS yourself. That's really what it's saying. And
Right.
The average person, even if they're mathematically inclined, will look at a number and assume something else. For example, it might say you have a 70% probability of success. And some people will look at that and say, oh, that means it's going to be okay. No, that means it's a 70% chance of being successful and it's a 30% chance of it not. And some people run away from investing because they do invest and things go south. Oh, see, I knew that money wasn't no good. I'm never invested again. You can't pick a point in time because investing doesn't work that way. We always talk about investing over the long term. So in addition to investing over the long term, you have to constantly reassess. Things change. You might have to make changes. You might have to change your risk acceptance, because we always talk about setting an acceptable level of risk. And that's pretty much how much money you can put out and possibly lose, and you're still not going to jump off a building. And so to invest, you have to accept some level of risk, because we always talk about if you want to increase your reward, you have to take some risk. You can't have one without the other. And over the long term, we always talk about how the S&P fund over the long term pays around 9-10%, even with all the recessions and wars and all the bad things that happen. So don't BS yourself. Know what you're looking at. Know how much risk you're willing to accept. Accept the fact that you have to accept some risk and move forward.
Now, this next one, though, is kind of tricky, but it's important to conceptualize what I'm about to say. Consider your assumptions carefully and choose actions you can stick with consistently. Now, planning can account for the potential for downside risk to show up by avoiding the use of aggressive assumptions. Now, I want to paraphrase this certified financial planner named Mr. Carl Riches. He said at a conference, risk is what shows up after you think you thought of everything. That's a good one, isn't it, though?
It is a good one.
Meaning that one thing you forgot to factor into the plan is the thing that is most likely to pop up and throw you for a loop. You can't possibly account for every reality that will come to pass. What you can do is use reasonable assumptions that aren't predicated on everything going your way. It's not necessarily about planning conservatively. That's not what I'm saying. The way you build a foolproof financial plan is by planning consistently. You know, me and Dope talk about that all the time. Now, here's some quick assumptions that should go into your plan. One, earnings and how long you expect to work or make a certain salary. That's going to be important because that's what's going to fund your financial plan. Living expenses now, but not just now, but also in retirement. You need to look forward to look into the future of what those expenses could look like in retirement. This is an essential assumption. Investment returns in your investment time horizon. We talk about that. You must understand what your investment horizon is and what you're planning to grow your money for. That's the investment returns, because that's going to determine which investment you get in. Is it going to be giving you 10% over 10 years, or is it going to be giving you 15, 20% over 10 years? And then talk about SMART goals, specific goals, and their cost and timelines. Those are just key assumptions when you go to talking about, planning for financial wellness.
Okay. Another important thing you got to remember is to account for change. Okay. If a plan has a high likelihood of success, it probably has a built-in natural buffer. And that buffer could be in terms of a conservative estimate of expenses, or an aggressive estimate of expenses and a conservative estimate of income and raises or interest rate earnings, just to make sure if you don't get quite that amount, your plan is still good. And so sometimes things happen that are totally out of your control. Might be a recession or a company layoff, or pandemic as we just had. Those kind of things, they're going to happen. We know that. And so as best you can, as Bob mentioned, an emergency fund, or just being more conservative in what you spend, because things are going to happen that changes what you think is going to happen. And some things, it could be your own control. You might be married and for a while decided not to have kids, and you saved accordingly, and then you decide to have kids. And everybody with kids know how much money kids cost, so you got to change your plan. So changes aren't always bad, but they do happen. They're going to happen. Try to put some buffer in your plan to make sure that you're ready for those changes as they come. Okay? And that's easier said than done, but just try to be conservative in income-related items, be aggressive or always overcompensate for future expenses, those kind of things. And then you can make sure you're always in pretty good shape when things don't go exactly as you thought they would, because change is inevitable. It's going to happen.
There's a statement that goes like this, though, the saying, not everything we face we can change, but we cannot change anything unless you face it. So many people get tripped up with change because they find it hard to deal with. But the key to change is actually having the knowledge to be able to deal with, to make the decisions to go with that change. Hey, dope. Joanne Skinner said, it's how they look at the glass. You can even look at it as half empty or half full. But you
That's
know
for
what I
sure.
say, dope? I don't look at it as half full or half empty. I look at it as full, because that's all I want to drink. And that's what's wrong with some people. They're not satisfied with where they are. But I want to talk about the the this is some, to bring this a little bit home as the last tip, is building a better future, right? Now, some Black Americans may have to cover extra ground in order to even generate and just preserve their personal wealth, not even build or create it, just to sustain and maintain. But just know that no matter what the big picture is, you do have the power to make a difference in your own financial life. And what's more important is in raising up your own personal net worth as a person of color. It can help you start a ripple effect that can just have such a positive impact, not just on your own personal finances, but on other people. You'd be surprised who's watching you. And I always like to say, I like to believe in people that show me what they can do more so than talking about what they can do.
Hey, hey, Bob, that's the whole thing. Don't tell me you're funny. Tell me a joke.
I ain't never heard that one. That's a good one. They hit me with that all the time. They say I don't tell jokes, I tell giggles. So remember to show yourself empathy, and know that whatever small steps you take today can add up to help you create a better financial future for tomorrow. And those are some financial tips for 2023 and beyond. So, dope. Let's bring it home like we always do. Let's go to the summary and takeaways.
Okay, and the
Bring it
first
all.
one.
We talked a lot of information. Let's go on you, Dope.
Okay, the first one is it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And by that we mean we don't care where you are now. We don't care where you are in relation to other people. We don't care if you have zero money saved. The most important thing to do is to start. Start building wealth, start putting money away, start changing your habits, start planning. Just start being in control of your financial wealth.
The next one is be your own best friend. Now, Dope talked about this. Don't beat yourself up so much because you're not, where you really want to be. Really focus on, you got to look at your family and take care of them, but first start with yourself because God's help those who can help themselves. So be your best friend, don't beat yourself up, go, you know, get some financial workshops, sit into some financial seminars, read a financial book, and really take control. You take control of your finances.
Okay, next, find support and help. Okay, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to pay for help. There's help out there. There's support. If you have a friend who's doing well, ask for their advice on who they use for financial advice or what kind of things they do. And the most important thing is to think about where you want to be and ask someone who's already there so they can tell you some of the things to watch out for as you try to get to where they are, because nobody did everything right. So at least they could tell you the mistakes they made so you don't make those same mistakes. So open up. A lot of times it's awkward to talk about money, but most people who have money don't mind talking about money. Ask, get support, and get help.
And the last one is plan to be financially well. It sounds very simple, but plan to be financially well. And what that means is, develop a plan and stick to it. That helps to financial wellness. Use reasonable assumptions. Don't use all of these far-fledged assumptions that people say, man, I can get you 50% return. No, no. Especially looking into cryptocurrency, use reasonable assumptions about investments you plan to be involved in. And be consistent. We talk about that all the time. The key to building wealth is financial planning consistently. Staying consistently with your plan, staying consistently with your investing, and plan for change. You must be ready because things happen, as they say. There's three kinds of people in this world. One, who people watch what happen. Two, is people who make it happen. And three, people don't know what the hell happened. So make sure you choose which one is the right one for you. So we want to thank everybody once again for staying with us. And uh, Maddie Ford said, focus on yourself and not try to focus on other people's thoughts on what you're doing. that is so true. That's called keeping up with the Joneses. So, as we always do, we like to give our shout out to thank you for so many people tuning in around the world, though, believe it or not. And I want to thank Modestine, Garnett Johnson, my wonderful sisters, Nolia Melton and Linda Sy, and TheNoteExperience.com. Rodney Madison, you want to know more about investment using holding notes and when you can act as the intermediary of the banker? Check out the Note Experience, Rodney Madison Sr. And good evening to my brother, Colton Chapman, Maddie Ford, and Joanne Skinner. Now, what's up, girl? Glad tuning in. You so supported so well. So thank you. And what does Rodney say here? Rodney says, you got some more Rodney got. No, say thank you for the information. So that's it, Dope. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, we're here every week 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. Next week it will be February the 16th. We look forward to seeing you there. And remember, keep putting comments in that comment box. You can still keep hitting that like button and hitting the heart button, because that actually still helps us with reaching more people. So, Dope, do you have any more final comments?
Yep, not knowing is not an excuse anymore, my people.
Can't use it no more.
Nope.
Knowledge is power. Have a good one, you all. Have a great rest of the week.